message written in these lands.
Not every question needs an immediate answer. Some echo until we're ready to listen. After Jack discovered his father's journal, the group fell silent. The hidden names, the repeated symbol, the torn out pages, everything pointed to something buried, older than any of them expected. But the next clue didn't come from an old diary or forgotten file. It came from something far more unexpected, something that had remained still for years, waiting to wake up. For the first time since the night her brother walked out to follow a signal and never returned, the compass he left behind began to move. The needle trembled, then locked, always pointing in the same direction, as if it were answering a call only Emily could hear. She remembered what he once told her. One day, if you really need me, it'll show you the way. Back then, it sounded like something you say to comfort a child, but now it felt different, real. Without hesitation, she followed the needle. Her steps led her to the gates of the old International Expo Park. Closed for over a decade, swallowed by vines, drenched in silence. And yet, the compass didn't falter. She took out her phone and typed one simple message. I found something. Bring Jack. By evening, they had all arrived. Ava climbed the fence first. Leo hesitated, then followed. Sophie studied everything. The ground, the walls, the rusted beams, like she was searching for a pattern. And Jack held his father's notebook tightly against his chest. The park was frozen in time. Abandoned rides, faded banners, echoes of lives that had moved on. At the far end, a building stood quiet, its lettering barely visible. Aurora, the future of humanity. On its wall, almost erased by time, was a familiar mark, a five-pointed star intertwined within a golden circle. Jack stepped forward and touched the metal, his voice barely above a whisper. I've seen this before, in my father's notebook. And then, a voice answered. A man stepped out from behind a rusted caravan, old, worn, and calm, a cap full of vintage pins, a vest stuffed with papers, eyes that hadn't forgotten. He said the symbol had been designed by Elias, back when Elias still believed he could change the world. Ava looked at him skeptical. How do you know all this? Zerenya, she asked. He didn't hesitate. His name was Thomas Whitmore. He had worked here as the sound and light technician, and he remembered everything. His gaze fell to the notebook Jack held. He stared for a moment, then smiled softly. That notebook, it belonged to Daniel Carter. I recognized the handwriting, the way he wrote numbers, the ink color, the dates in the corner. He never changed. Jack nodded. He's my father. Whitmore nodded back. Makes sense. He told them that Daniel and Elias had once worked side by side. Inseparable, at least in the beginning. But Daniel had seen the line, and Elias had crossed it. Sophie asked, what was Project Aurora exactly? Whitmore turned to face the building. This is where it all began, and this is where he lost himself. Inside, the dust thickened. Cables hung from the ceiling. Machines blinked with no purpose. And in a corner, a shelf with old magnetic tapes. Sophie found one. Its label faded, but still legible. Technical interview. Thomas Whitmore, 2004. He hesitated. You sure you want to see this? Jack answered, we have to. They turned it on. The tape flickered. And there he was, a younger Whitmore seated, his voice low but steady. He spoke of Elias, of the dream to map the human mind, to create energy from thought, to interface between brain and machine, and maybe to communicate with something beyond understanding. But something had changed. Elias became obsessed and started working alone, without permission, without limits. Emily stepped back. Elias, Jack whispered, the creator of Project Aurora and the real name of Doctor, Enigma. Nobody said a word. The past had caught up. The tape ended with one final line. If you're seeing this, it means he's returned. And that can only mean one thing. And just then, the building responded. The lights flickered. A deep hum rumbled beneath their feet. And at the top of the grand staircase, he appeared. Dr. Enigma, tall, still, draped in shadow, his mask catching the light, just enough to reflect the past in its surface. He didn't move. He didn't need to. His voice filled the room, deep, measured, unshakable. What you seek is closer than you think. But to understand the origin, you must go further back than you planned. He looked at Jack, then at Emily. The answers you need aren't in the future. They're in the past you tried to forget. He stepped forward and dropped something onto the floor, a small metal key with a familiar symbol etched into its surface. Then he turned and disappeared into the dark. They didn't speak. Not right away. Emily stepped forward, knelt, and picked up the key.
The stars align one final time. Your secret's safe with mine.